So, for today's Late IHP Show with Maria, your favorite 5D mystic, functional adult, Enlightenment soul age group. And I'm thinking because I was waiting for this year. I knew the timeline. I've known the timeline, but I didn't think that we would have an actual 4D bandwidth that was so vocal. I mean, the people that are ancient silverbacks, that I get, because when I think of academia and my years in college, I remember noticing the closed-mindedness and wondering, how are you considering yourself educators as well as people who I'm supposed to quote unquote look up to? You have biases you don't know about, and you are not actually educating me. You are giving me a tainted picture of a lot of things, because I can tell when you're using adjectives that you've chosen to describe events that you've chosen based on a timeline that you've instructed me on. I'm a political science major, so I see biases whenever there are any, because I know when I like or dislike something, I use words that will contour my likes or dislikes. And I try to ensure people understand it's a subjective opinion so that people can know I like or dislike something. Obviously, I can acknowledge as a functional adult in the Enlightenment soul age group that you might not, because people don't recognize their own low self-esteem. Because when you are a non-differentiated self, which means that your human elements, the culture that you come from, the family that you come from, the belief system, all of it. And so if you don't have a recognition of your subjective experience and you're able to speak to me with a normal, curious, interesting tone, then you are not actually what is called a functional adult. You are still an adaptive child. You are emotionally immature. You are, in fact, in potentially slightly cognitive dissonance, as well as I'm going to maintain power and control. So in your drama, safety, survival, nervous system, modality response, and so much more. So on that note, I get very passionate. I'm trying to do my best to explain things, especially on video. And I'm also wanting to channel for my lovely mystics, because it's a very special time. In the 4D, well, they believe in evil and good as the biblical ancient scripture text, which I know some ancient silverbacks as well as professionals who taint their actual sciences with spirituality and or spiritual concepts. And see, again, I'm able to differentiate, yes, me, Maria, from what is a belief system based on books that tell me stories to the data that explains to me information of how my brain works, that we find, quote unquote, loopholes, meaning missing information, in the explanation of all things that are created. As physicists have pointed out, I've watched plenty of Cosmos, and there's one lady I really like, and it's from how the universe is made and how it's going to move forward, and she says something very beautiful. She was interviewed by the Well or Big Think, which I think are one and the same, but she says, when we find out how the Big Bang started, what are you going to do? Are you going to expand? You're not going to have any more areas to expand the concept of, and I won't use the word out of respect for those who don't have it in them to be able to conceptualize sciences. And yet they want to use the word smart. And yet they want to use the word intellect. And yet they want to use the word intelligence. And yet they want to regurgitate. So when I see a person who actually has low self-esteem, I will immediately notice it, because they don't know how to say curious. So it doesn't matter if you're on a podium. If you don't know how to speak to me calmly, I know when I'm getting into my Kali mode, and I'm okay with it. I don't need to not be, because I'm not really performing for an audience. But no, really what I should say, it's not about performance, is that I will lead if I want to lead with example. So you'd think that people would want to lead with a specific way of using their smart mind. But the thing is, they're not smart. They've gotten in their head that being in their survival mode makes them smart. I don't know. That's a question. Let's pose that one, shall we? So you really want to wonder about the word smart. I think of it as stable, mature, adaptive, rational, and teachable, acronym that I made up. Thank you, Daniel Siegel, though, for giving me the idea, because smart faces, the faces is his. Flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, and stable brain. And that's only if you're using the left and right mode. So it means all of your child charge parts, your 3-year-old, your 1-year-old, all of it. It's right here. So I know when my 3-year-old comes up, it's usually and exclusively with my lovely mother and twin, but I also have a 1-year-old who comes up every now and then, and probably other charged child parts when I get into like a scary mode. So on that note, though, I want to channel a little bit because we have some fascinating aspects going on for the 5D collective. So the 4D and the 3D, they're with ancient silverbacks. They need a master, they need a teacher, they need somebody to keep telling them that the unknown of when you finish life here has an answer. And I did grow up, in fact, with Jesus, and Jesus stands for Christ consciousness, oneness consciousness, because of the unconditionally loving equanimous and more. So he has his own masculine and feminine. Feminine is your body, which means you can use your human being emotional body. It means you have the depth of experience, so you can navigate in a default mode network that engages with what is called your ventral vagal nervous system. So you have the oxytocin gene hormone on. You don't need anybody to touch you or be near you forever and ever and ever, and you will be a happy chemistry. And I'm not joking with you, by the way. This is very straightforward. In fact, if you learn from good sex therapists, they will inform you of how everything is created right up here. I loved when I watched one of them. She was talking about it, and I was like, I might test out what you talked about, but what makes me smile today is that I know that young generations have you, a great educator, to teach them about their bodies so that they don't have, superstitious stuff, ancient, incorrect stuff. And I know that they will have to go to school at least until a certain year according to the law, and I look forward to that law expanding and extending to the 25 or 27-year-old mark so that children and adolescents can be exposed to good educators, which have to follow what scientists find is the inner and outer well-being for humanity. Example, I'm a smoker. I don't smoke anymore, but I still smoke cigars. I have never been against the whole thing about making it aware to people that smoking cigarettes is bad. I don't like brainwashing, but people like to be brainwashed. No, they don't like to be brainwashed. They just don't know how to understand how to assimilate information in the absence of believing it to be true somehow. Like there's this very fascinating experience. I'm going to leave that one to the side because, see, I'm a securely attached person. And I didn't have the non-differentiated self. No, I have a differentiated self, and my name is Maria. And as a mystic, let me finish up our last minutes with some readings. So once you resonate with being yourself, and you definitely have compassion in your lovely home, and you're no longer lost, and you don't need, in fact, a master or teacher, unlike the 4D and low self-esteem individuals who do not have a secure attachment yet. So they need to bow down to somebody who gives them an answer for the acceptance of themselves and navigating the unknown. So once you're out of that, you know that the word deity, divinity, really, I mean, we can talk about stories all we want, but if you've closed the door to your indecision, and really what it is accepting Shiva, nothingness. So we have a lot of unknowns, and we don't need answers. We can actually navigate ourselves if we don't refuse to return home to your restorative embodied self, which, by the way, has everything to do with you being able to unconsciously love who you are, and in your relationships be able to also do no drama. We will have a number 2 Late IHP show for that one, since my polyamory and monoamory community will enjoy that. But in the meantime, if you do not tune back in, or if you do tune back in, learning to love yourself first is very easy for securely attached. If not, then there's good childhood trauma experts that explain to you why that is, and you would want to take that up so that you can become a whole person first, and then use your smart brain, left and right integration of the brain. Restorative embodied self is your inner and outer well-being as a human being. And I think that the life of now is very important to live well. Heaven in the body is what it's called. Tune in.